Sometimes we have the big mobile array, which is like 6 feet long or wide. And they're very curious on the submarine, so they come really, really close, just like that, and almost like covering the whole cabin. So some really amazing experiences.
Welcome to Experiences You Should Have, your how-to guide for amazing experiences. I'm Gail Manasco, your host, and today we are diving down deep at Cocos Island. Now, Cocos Island is a tiny little island that you don't even step foot on, 594 kilometers southwest of Costa Rica. And this island has been on my radar since I was a little girl. My Uncle Larry went on a liveaboard trip to Cocos Island, and he came back with all these photos of Schooling Hammerheads. And ever since I saw those photos, I've wanted to go to Cocos Island. And I've even had a bank account labeled Cocos Island that we've been putting $100 into for years, saving up for this type of big trip. A few years ago, actually 2 years ago, there was a last minute trip to the Galapagos that was going on, and I got a fantastic deal on that trip. And 6 weeks before the trip went, I decided I was going to the Galapagos, and there I would swim with Schooling Hammerheads. So while it wasn't Cocos, I decided to go to Galapagos, and it was actually on that liveaboard in the Galapagos right after swimming with Schooling Hammerheads that I started this podcast. I brought some microphones with me on the boat, and I started interviewing people on the boat, which became episodes because I knew those people on that liveaboard were my kind of people, the people who will go out in the middle of nowhere that might take a boat ride 18 hours in the middle of maybe rough seas to go see that really cool thing, and will get the certifications, will do what it takes, will save, will make that amazing trip happen. So while I didn't go to Cocos Island, I went to the Galapagos. Cocos Island has still been in the back of my mind. And it's really interesting because I was out at a hot spring in the middle of Oregon a few weeks ago. And I brought all this food to cook for the weekend. And there's just this tiny little camp kitchen at this hot spring. And I was cooking there for us and our friends. And there was a guy sitting in the kitchen. And I told him that I've got this really cool podcast called Experiences You Should Have. I was passing out stickers. I mean, come on. You got to promote when you got to promote. And we just started talking about the podcast a little bit later. We started talking about my favorite episodes and how much I love the Blackwater episodes. I've got 2 Blackwater episodes, actually. One about Kona and one about drift diving off of Florida. Go check them out. And we got to talking, and he mentioned that he understood what I was talking about. And not many people really understand the diurnal vertical migration. I'm just absolutely love. And he said, have you ever heard of Cocos Island? And I said, have I heard of Cocos Island? Absolutely, I've heard of Cocos Island. He said, do you know about the boats there? And I said, yeah, I've been eyeing the Argo for some time. And he said, do you know what's on the Argo? And I said, yes, I do. There's a submersible on the Argo. A submarine is on the Argo. And if you pay extra, you can go in a submarine off of Cocos Island and see Schooling Hammerheads and get to go on a submarine. And so there at 10 something at night, I said, can I interview you for Experiences You Should Have? And he said, yes. So today's episode was made in the middle of Oregon, all around our affinity for Schooling Hammerheads, with David Engel. So thank you, David. I really hope you're listening. I really enjoyed this impromptu interview. We were freezing during this episode, so I'm not sure if you're hearing our teeth chattering or not. But let's go and dive down deep to Cocos Island. Welcome to Experiences You Should Have, your how-to guide for amazing experiences. I'm Gail, your host, and I am sitting here at night at Crystal Crane Hot Springs in Oregon. However, this episode is not about Crystal Crane Hot Springs. I met a fellow soaker here tonight, David Engel, and he ran the submersible at Cocos Island, which is a submarine you can take on a liveaboard diving boat. And just to give you a little background, Cocos Island is very, very far away from the mainland. How far away from Costa Rica is it?
Oh, that's a tricky question. I always forget. I would say about 300,000 kilometers. I'm not sure. We can check it later.
It's far. It's about an 18-hour...
Oh, it's a day and a half sailing, like 36 hours of sailing.
Yeah, 36 hours of sailing to get out there. And this is for some hardcore divers who want to be out there diving every day. Yes. But there's this boat, and it's been on my radar for years, and I haven't gotten to go on it, but we even have a bank account labeled Cocos Island. So don't worry, I'm going to make it there. And there's a boat there called the Argo, and on the Argo is a submersible. And here I just met David randomly tonight, and he operated the submarine on the Argo, which, I mean, my mind is blown. Like, it is so blown right now. And he operated this submarine on this liveaboard that's been on my sites for 4 years. So, welcome, David, to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Glad to be here. Thank you. It's amazing how the chances just like that.
So random. Okay, so not every boat that goes out to Cocos Island has a submarine on it, correct?
Yeah, we are the only boat that have the submarine.
Yes, which is why the Argo has been on my eye for years. And now, are there people who go out on the liveaboard who aren't diving, who just want to do the submarine?
There's some, but it's not very common. Usually the people that come on the boat are scuba divers who want to come do the scuba diving in the island. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we have couples that, like, one is a scuba diver and the other one just coming for vacation. But I would say it doesn't really worth it, to be honest. It's more about the scuba diving. The island itself is really beautiful, but you out over there in the middle of the ocean, you don't have any signal, which can be very nice for 10 days to be out of reach.
Right.
But for summer, you can imagine it can be quite boring if you don't scuba dive.
Right.
Or you cannot. I mean, we anchor next to the island all those 10 days. A week. It's 1.5 days sailing over there and 1.5 days sailing back. So it's a week that we spend next to the island. Mm-hmm. And we don't really, we stay on the boat all the time.
So what type of animals are you seeing underwater at Cocos Island?
Ooh. Many creatures. Big. Usually it will be more big creatures. I would say a lot of different kind of sharks. We have a lot of schools of hammerheads, Galapagos sharks, silky sharks. Sometimes we see more far from the island. Mm-hmm. We have seasons that we have a lot of whale sharks. We have mantas. Mobulas rays, white-tip sharks, and all different kind of fish around there.
So lots of sharks, a lot of life going on. Now the submersible, this submarine is on the boat. How big is this submarine?
Well, I can tell you in meters and try to...
Yeah, that's fine. Meters is fine.
So wide is like 3 meters and high is 3 meters also, and the length is like 6 meters.
So how many people can fit in it?
3 people, include the pilot. So 2 passengers.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you piloted the submersible for 4 years?
That is correct. It includes the training that I had.
Yeah.
So it took me a while to train on that. It's kind of like actually like a driving license that you do for a car. You need to pass a theory in the beginning and to learn all the work on deck, because we also do a lot around it, not only piloting it. Like maneuvering the submarine out from the boat to the water, tow it with a support boat to the dive site. We need to do all of that.
So when you're in the submersible, take me through the experience. You get in with 2 other people, and then what happens next?
So first of all, we have 2 different kind of dives that we offer with the submarine. One is shallow, which is to around 300 feet or like 100 meters. This is we call the shallow dive.
Okay.
Because we still have light over there, and it's still the same habitat that you see in scuba diving, of sharks, colors. It's a bit more dark, of course, but it's quite the same. The second dive that we offer is the more unique experience, which is to 1,000 feet or 300 meters.
Wow!
And this we go beyond the light.
Yes! Okay, so you're not on the reef, so you're seeing pelagic creatures.
We do see pelagic creatures. So what we do, we tow the submarine about 1.2 of a mile away from the island.
Okay.
And until we reach to a point where the bottom of the island suddenly it breaks down to a very sheer drop. So it goes down. You can imagine that the bottom of the island goes as a sandy slope away from the island, and then suddenly it breaks down at about 600 feet. It breaks down to like 1.2 of a mile as a big wall. This is a place that we find in the beginning. So we go down from the surface, we go down to this depth, we find the edge. This is how we call it. And over there it's already getting quite dark, and we already have the lights on. And it's kind of like landing on the moon, because this area, it doesn't have much current if at all. It's very, very quiet. The visibility is amazing, and it's sandy, and you have this edge that beyond it you see only dark, like the depth of the ocean. And just the whole area, it looks kind of like being in outer space. You're in this spaceship, you have the light shining on the rocks and the sand, and you have all these small and different kind of fish that they move very, very slow. It's a very unique experience.
Do you see creatures with their own bioluminescence at that depth, or what does it look like in that sense?
Over there we still don't have really the creatures that shine by themselves. Like those are much, much deeper. But we do have some deep water creatures over there. One of them we call yellow nosefish, which is a fish about, I would say, between 1 feet to 2 feet long. It's a very interesting fish. It has some tentacles on the belly to feel the bottom, and this way he hunts. He hunts some shrimps that you feel on the sandy bottom, and he have very big eyes, very big fins, and he have a tail kind of like a moray. Very, very elegant actually. And this is one of the deep water fish that you don't see in scuba diving. You see only in this depth. And you see only in some places of the world. And one of them is Cocos.
Wow.
Yeah.
So why should someone come out and get in a submersible off of Cocos Island?
Well, besides the cool experience of being in a submarine, and this specific submarine, there is a very cool feature that I really like to mention every time, which is the dome, the acrylic dome. So basically it's 2 domes that are close to a bubble, like a clamshell design. And what's special about this acrylic that it's almost the same density of the water.
Yeah.
And the moment you go underwater, it's really become invisible. Like you don't see it. So you feel like you're in the open ocean. You feel all the creatures, all the fishes that sometimes come really close to you. You feel like you can touch them almost. Like you reach with the hand and then suddenly you touch something hard, which is the window, but you don't see it with your eyes.
Right.
Which is incredible. Like it's really hard to describe it, or for somebody who haven't done this to believe it, because it's really invisible. And this is the unique thing I think about the submarine. And it can go very deep. It goes to depth that most of people cannot go, like I would say normal or regular people that are not scientists or military.
Right.
Because usually it's a thing that is only for those kind of people. And we offer it to tourists or regular people to go on this adventure to this depth and to these places that not a lot of people have been before with the submarine.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Now, how safe is it?
It's really safe. We did it, I can try to remember what was the last dive number that we did, but it was around 3,000.
Wow.
200 and something. I cannot remember, but it's a lot of dives that we did, and we do it almost on a daily basis, twice every day. And there's a lot of systems over there that are backing up, like that are independent from each other and backing, like there's two from each system.
Yeah.
So in case one is failing, we have the other one. There's a lot of emergencies system there that we can operate in case of, obviously.
Wow. I mean, what an experience. What an experience. Well, let's get into some logistics.
Okay.
So if you want to go on the submersible, you need to book a liveaboard trip on the Argo.
Right.
Do you know the best way to book that?
Online. Or through some agencies. If you have a scuba diving agency that you know or you scuba dive with, they might have the contacts of the company. The company's name is Undersea Hunter. You can just look online on this name, the Undersea Hunter group, and book it through there.
So how much does the liveaboard cost on average? And this is just the ballpark numbers here. And then how much does the submersible cost? And then what does that actually get you?
Right. So the trip on the Argo will be around $5,000, which includes
all your food, your diving,
everything.
all inclusive.
Very exclusive, very comfortable, very nice, and with 3 dives a day. And it doesn't include the submarine trip, which will be for the deep dive. It's $1,850. Okay. Dollars per seat, and for the shallow is $1,450 per seat.
Okay, now as far as tipping on a liveaboard, I've always tipped maybe about 15% of the trip cost.
Right.
Do you also tip your submarine dive operator?
So
pilot?
over there, it's include all the crew together. So the tip that you give in the end of the trip will be for everything together.
Okay, got it. And so just keep that in mind to bring some tip money with you when you go on this. Now, about how far in advance do people book this trip?
I hear sometimes people book it like 2 years ahead, actually. Sometimes people find more cheaper trips that are kind of like
last minute
trips, and then they do it like 2 weeks ahead.
Right.
But it's not very often. Usually you do it a year ahead, something like that.
Okay. And where do you fly into to board the Argo?
So you fly to Costa Rica, to the capital city, which is San Jose. Over there, it's part of the package, I think. That you go to a hotel, and from there they drive you on the bus to the port or the pier of the Argo, which is in Punta Arenas on the west Pacific side of Costa Rica.
Now, how is the crossing to get from Costa Rica to Cocos Island? Is it rough? Is it pleasant?
That's a good question. Yeah, that's a good question because it is a day and a half or like 36 hours of sailing. And I would say there's two seasons, main season in Costa Rica. There's wet season and dry season. Wet season is around, I would say May to November, end of November. And dry season is from end of November to May. Dry season will be much, much calmer. The sea condition is really nice. The water is sometimes it's like a mirror, and it's perfect. And you don't feel, most of the time you won't feel anything like seasickness. On the wet season, sometimes you have storms, sometimes you have big waves. It can be rough. We had some times like that, but the moment we arrived to the island, we were very protected and no waves, and it's really, really nice over there. We just anchor in like a big bay, a very beautiful bay, and it's very quiet.
Now, what about if you want to dive with the Schooling Hammerheads? I mean, that is always what I want to do. I finally went and did it in the Galapagos a couple years ago, but Cocos is still on my list. What's the best time of year to see the hammerheads?
Right. On that, to be honest, I'm not completely sure. I would say probably in the wet season it will be more because the water temperature is lower and they like more cold water. Mm-hmm. On the dry season, it's more warmer.
Right.
So it will be less. But on specific month, I don't really remember. Maybe November, but I cannot guarantee
we'll
that.
Look it up and we'll include it on the show notes on experiencesyousshouldhave.com. Click on episodes and there will be some more information there.
Yes.
And so when you're going on this trip, you need to have a dive certification. If you're going to pay the money to go on a liveaboard, you might as well be there diving.
Right, yeah. And to have some experience.
Yeah, you need advance.
Some people come with no experience and it's really, really rough. The Cocos Island is a place for advanced divers because we have the strong currents there. It's not always very easy. We don't go against currents, but still it can be quite rough. And just to let you know.
I remember in the Galapagos we would have a down current sometimes we would just quickly go from 60 feet to 90 feet.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Those ones, I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
It's mostly side currents.
So people should bring their gear. Do they need like a Nautilus lifeline, like a marine GPS on them if they're diving Cocos?
No, you can bring, but we give it also on board.
Okay,
we
great.
Provide like those GPS stuff.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Hey, you don't want to be lost at sea, you know?
Definitely.
And so you're out there for 10 days, no service. Is there Wi-Fi on the boat?
No.
No Wi-Fi, guys. You cannot work remote on the Argo. Unless your work doesn't require internet. But
satellite phone, but it costs money, of course.
Right, right.
But I would say it's a good opportunity to be disconnected. For 10 days, a lot of people really like it, and just to be there really and be in the moment of on the island, scuba diving, on the boat, having fun. Sometimes we make parties on the boat, we dance, and I used to do salsa classes on board.
Oh yeah, you do salsa?
Yes, I love salsa.
Do you do bachata?
Oh yes.
And merengue?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I loved it.
I was on a Latin dance team for a couple years.
Oh, nice. That's cool.
That's fun.
I learned it in Costa Rica.
Oh, cool.
So it was very nice, and we will try to just arrange some nice activities on board.
Yeah.
The crew is very nice, very funny people, and very lovely. And yeah, it's kind of a homey feeling, I think.
I mean, this is a dream trip. I mean, you were out there in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by sharks, and while on this trip, you can go to the deepest depth that you will probably ever go in your entire life.
Definitely. And see some stuff that you probably won't see anywhere else.
It will blow your mind.
Oh, yes.
It will blow your mind.
In the submarines, there's some stuff, like, also the simple stuff that's so amazing. Just to have this experience of that you sit comfortably inside the submarine. You're very close to the window, so you just see in front. The pilot is sitting more back. And you see the stuff floating in the water, like a jellyfish. Even if a jellyfish, it shines in the light, and when the light shine on it, it reflects some colors.
Oh, it creates a prismatic effect.
Right. And it's so beautiful because it's just dancing, like, gentle in the water. And sometimes we have the big mobular rays, which is like 6 feet long or wide. And they're very curious on the submarine, so they come really, really close, just like that, and almost like covering the whole cabin above you. They make a big shadow. It's fantastic. There's some really amazing experiences with that.
Well, it sounds like an experience that you should have.
Definitely.
And something I ask on every episode is I like to talk about accessibility. Have you had people come on the boat who maybe had limited mobility or maybe were in a wheelchair? Did they ever come and do the submersible?
Well, on a wheelchair, I don't think we had anybody, because to scuba dive, you do need your legs eventually.
Right. Well, there's some people who can scuba dive in a wheelchair. It's like adaptive scuba diving.
I guess.
But Cocos might be too much current for that. I don't know.
Yeah, again, Cocos is quite rough, I think, and you do need for the scuba diving, you have small boats that you climb from the big boat to the small boats to the scuba dive, and so you need to climb. When you finish the scuba diving, you climb to the skiff.
Okay. So you might need a little bit more dexterity for this experience, but definitely talk to the folks at Undersea Hunter, and they can help answer some questions there.
Definitely.
If you have limited mobility and maybe you still want to try the submarine and kind of figure out what needs to be done there. And we'll include contact info for them. Well, truly, thank you, David. I mean, what a treat.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, hang out this hot spring and then...
in the freezing cold.
Costa Rica. Well, there is a hot spring right behind us. So, definitely. Yeah. Truly, thank you for being on the show. And then we'll include lots of photos on experiencesyoushouldhave.com. Definitely check out the Instagram account, Experiences Podcast. We'll be posting stuff there. And until our next adventure. Thank you so much for listening to Experiences You Should Have. And you never know where an inspiration for an episode might come. It might be in a camp kitchen, at an Oregon hot spring. It might be on a liveaboard boat in the middle of the ocean. It might be at a hot air balloon fiesta in the middle of Albuquerque. You just never know. And so if you have a really interesting experience that can be replicated and you would like to be on the show, then please go to experiencesyoushouldhave.com and click on contact and shoot me a note. Something I'd like to highlight are accessible experiences. Maybe if you have limited mobility, and you're looking for adventures around the world, I'd like to cover accessibility. And diving is something I've always enjoyed talking about. While Cocos Island is definitely a little bit more advanced diving, there's plenty of diving around the world that so many people can do from all walks of life and from many different motor abilities. And there's adaptive scuba diving classes out there. And if maybe you have trouble walking, but maybe you're a fantastic swimmer, I just encourage you, check it out if water's your thing. I completely understand if you might get claustrophobic or going underwater. Scuba diving isn't for everybody. But if it does sound interesting to you, there's so many different programs to get certified. There's an open water certification you need to be 10 years old for. But for this type of diving, it is advanced. So you're going to want some experience and dives under your belt for Cocos Island. But I just highly recommend, if the ocean's calling your name, go check it out. And if you do, if you do maybe need an adaptive diving course, I'll make sure to link to that in the show notes. I've mentioned on the podcast before about why I'm so compelled for accessible travel and accessible adventures. My husband has cerebral palsy, and he went out to Malaysia with me. Gosh, when was that? I don't know, maybe like 7 years ago. And while we were there, he ended up finishing his diving certification and surprised me while we were on that trip. And then we did 17 dives together. And while he has trouble with his balance and that sort of thing on land, in the water, that's not an issue. And so it's really neat because he and I have gone underwater rock climbing in caves in Mexico, and things that may not be as possible on land become possible in the water. So you may notice there's lots of diving episodes on experiences you should have. So if you're into diving, please listen to them. And if you're not into diving, totally cool. But tell a friend who likes diving about experiences you should have. So again, thank you for listening. Please tell a friend, your mother, your sister, your enemy about this show. And please reach out on experiencesyousshouldhave.com. And if you're on Instagram, check us out, Experiences Podcast. I would love to hear from you. Thank you.